Hello, good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all our attendees and our esteemed speakers. Today, we have the privilege of being in the presence of notable contributors joining us today. There is a quote: Global financial hubs are the engines of innovation, fostering opportunities where vision meets strategy. How can India's IFSC be the next frontier for the growth in aircraft and ship leasing? We will get the answers as we move ahead with the webinar on leveraging IFSC's framework, legal and financial strategies for aircraft and ship leasing in India's IFSC, jointly organized by Law and Quadrant Legal. Law is a full-service law firm, excellence in dispute resolution, finance, energy, and emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, and with contribution to global frameworks by UNESCO and others. Co-organizing this webinar is Quadrant Legal, India's modern law firm, blending a rich legal culture with global practices across. Renowned for admiralty and maritime law, it offers an expertise in ship financing, maritime arbitration, and dispute resolution. Thank you to all our attendees for joining us today. We value your enthusiasm and encourage active participation. We would like to inform you that the certificates of attendance will be issued to the registered attendees who stay at least for 100 minutes, and that will be at the management discretion. Furthermore, the certificates can be accessed by everyone until the January 27th. Now, it's my distinct honor to introduce today's esteemed moderator, Mr. Jagmeet Singh Makkar. Mr. Jagmeet is an independent arbitrator and educator with 4 decades of practical experience in technical and commercial shipping, which includes contracts of carriage, shipbuilding, ship sale and purchase, and ship leasing, amongst others. He is based in Hong Kong and also on the panel of several arbitration bodies. We are privileged to have such an accomplished professional guiding today's session. Thank you once again for being here, and without further delay, let's commence the session. Over to you, Mr. Jagmeet.
Thank you very much, Saloni, and welcome everyone who is there attending this program. Significant tonnage. Now, let me just hit straight and start the program. Significant tonnage under a flag helps create an ecosystem towards a powerful maritime center that builds up the broader skill sets, generates employment, and additionally has a strategic importance. The question now is how to grow tonnage under a flag, in this case, Indian flag. When our own ship owners, they prefer foreign flags, all these so-called flags of convenience, because of the higher competitive advantage. Over the last few years, we have been talking about a level playing field, simplifying regulations, enhancing ease of doing business, and even considering second registers on the coastline of our country, which is 7,500 kilometers. This is to be on similar lines as the REG, Red Ensign Group of the United Kingdom, but somehow there is no progress on that area. However, as an excellent alternative, we have IFSCA. There is a strong possibility of increasing Indian flag tonnage that is beneficially owned by Indian as well as foreign nationals. We will hear more about this, as well as leasing of the aircrafts. So some of my colleagues who are going to talk about aircrafts, they must be wondering, Jagmeet is only talking about shipping. I can't help it, that's where I come from. All right. So to answer these questions, we have fantastic esteemed speakers. So I'm delighted to introduce them to you. Let me start with Mr. Umesh P. Gosar. He's partner at S.N. Karani and Company. He's a chartered accountant with 24 years of experience. He specializes in corporate finance, mergers and acquisitions, tax structuring, and financial advisory for both publicly listed, publicly traded companies and the MSMEs. Thank you, Umesh, for joining us. Dr. Abhay Singh Thakur, assistant professor at Gujarat Maritime University, specializes in shipping laws, marine environmental law, and international carriage law. He holds a doctorate in ship compliance and shipping contracts and has presented research at major international maritime conferences. Thank you for joining, Abhay. Mr. Captain Pankaj Kapoor is managing partner of Quadrant Legal, is a former master mariner turned maritime lawyer. I still call him captain. So not Mr. He's still captain for me. He contributed to India's national maritime policy and holds advisory roles with Ministry of Finance, Shipping, and Petroleum. He is also an independent director, uh, board advisor for GMIC, and an adjunct professor of maritime law. Last but not the least, Mr. Swar Kansagra. He is the co-founder of With Law Firm. He is a distinguished lawyer specializing in global policy, regulation development, and international compliance. He is actively shaping global policies to address emerging challenges, aligning them with industry's best practices. Thank you, sir, for organizing it and also for speaking at this. Now, I'm going to ask our panelists to take about 7 to 8 minutes for their opening remarks in their areas of expertise, which is most related to the topic of the day. Let's start with you, Swar, and followed by Pankaj and then Abhay. Umeshji, I'll come to you later. Last but not the least, but I'll surely come to you. All right, Swar, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jagmeet. It was really a nice introduction, and thank you all the attendees for being part of this webinar. So I will be talking about the aviation policies and regulatory landscape. So let's just first of all understand the present Indian aviation market. So before I dive into, let's set a quick context. India is on the track to become the third largest aviation market globally, with a projected fleet size that could surpass 2,000 aircrafts by 2030. Airlines here are increasingly reliant on leasing to meet capacity requirements and modernize their fleets. Today, we'll focus on how this IFSCA, particularly at GIFT City, offers a promising framework to facilitate aircraft and ship leasing transactions. So maritime and the ship leasing will be covered by our another esteemed speaker. I am just focusing on the aviation. The second part is India's leasing penetration is expected to increase to around 40 to 50% by 2050 due to fleet expansion and modernization. Approximately 80% of India's commercial aircraft fleet is leased from foreign leasers, primarily based on the countries like Ireland and Singapore. And that's why this is one of the main reasons that we have IFSCA. Now let's just understand what is leasing in terms of aviation. Leasing is in aviation refers to an arrangement where an aircraft owner permits a lessee, that is the airline or the operator, to use the aircraft for a set period in exchange of rental payments. This provides airlines with operational flexibility without the sufficient upfront cost for purchasing aircrafts. That being said, there are three basic types of leases. One is wet lease, the second is damp lease, and the third is dry lease. Now, when it comes to wet lease, it basically includes aircraft, including crew, pilot and the cabin, maintenance and insurance. That is what is covered in wet lease. It is best for short term, and advantages it's a complete package and it has an operational support. The second is aviation plus includes lease. So in this scenario, aircraft is provided to the lessee and the lessee provides crew and maintenance insurance. This is specifically for a kind of a model where airlines have an existing crew network, and it is generally advantageous for middle ground between full service and a non-service leasing. And the third is only aircraft. So where the only aircraft is leased, everything else is handled by lessee, that is handles operation, maintenance, and insurance. It is best for long-term agreements, fleet expansion, and it has a full control flexibility. So these are the three types of leasing frameworks. Now, certainly recently, because of the sustainability and global warming, the green leasing concept has become very famous. So even as part of contracts, companies are now leveraging environmental clauses, encouraging fuel efficient and low emission aircrafts. This is particularly referred to as green leasing in aviation. Now, why aviation leasing is important? The first is it is flexible and cost efficiency. The second is the management of fleet become easier for the operator. With the fund of coming from the leaser itself, the leasee gets the chance of using latest technology with the capital of leaser. The risk management in terms of finance gets reduced because there are two players coming into picture where the capital of leaser is there and the leasee gets to leverage that capital. Apart from that, is an IFSCA also is focusing on sustainability. So this is one of the core aspects that helps IFSC as one of the prominent player in the world. Now we have some of the prominent frameworks in India. The one is National Civil Aviation Policy, NCAP 2016. The second is Aircraft Leasing Framework, which is again introduced by IFSCA. And the third is liberalizations of foreign direct investment. That is 100% of FDI is right now allowed in India. Now, some of the challenges that we face in aviation leasing industries is one is regulatory gaps because outdated aircraft act cause ambitious regulations and inconsistent enforcement. The second is safety and security compliance, where disputes over safety violations and penalties results into litigation due to inconsistent application of standards. The third is maintenance, repair, and overhaul, where maintenance disputes arise due to unclear definition and responsibilities between leaser, leasee, and the MRO providers. And of course, the environmental challenges which are happening right now in the market in each and every sector. Now, based on this, I will be considering two real case examples where there was a recent litigation between TWC Aviation Capital and SpiceJet Limited in 2024, where TWC leased two aircraft to SpiceJet, which defaulted on payments, and the UK court ordered repossession and TWC sought enforcement in the Delhi High Court. So in this particular scenario, there was a problem in terms of the jurisdiction of specific leasing. The second is Big Charter Private Limited between versus Eason Aviation Private Limited. This is regarding ambiguous in lease agreements and leaser's failure. Now, the Big Charter leasee claimed Eason Aviation, which is leaser, failed to meet its obligation under a letter of intent and a lease agreement, particularly regarding maintenance, reserves, and financial responsibilities. So these are some of the challenges that we are facing in the market and in aviation, where particularly there are questions in terms of maintenance of the contract. Now, in order to cater this, Indian government is very much prominent, and in the last year, 2024, Bharatiya Vayuyan Vidayak BVV 2024 was introduced by government, which 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 was passed in December 5, 2024, and which came into force in January 1, 2025, which repealed the Aircraft Act 1934. Now, the challenges which I discussed earlier are clearly catered in this act, where we have clearer regulations, stronger safety oversight, defined MRO and responsibilities. We have sustainability clarity in the new act, and of course, we have transparent appeal process. So this is something which Indian industry, along with the IFSC, is doing. And in the closing remark, I would like to say that IFSC offers a compelling avenue for advancing India's statutes in global leasing arena, both for the aircraft and shipping. By fine-tuning regulatory provisions, incentivizing financial innovations, and fostering stronger collaborations among industry stakeholders, we can realize the potential of this new hub. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Mr. Jagmeet.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So I think one of our speakers, he's having tea with the attendees. So can we have him to present his remarks? Is it possible to connect Captain Pankaj Kapoor?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you, sir, for that introduction and also being so, observant about the tea. Thank you very much for that. It's evening time, tea time in India, sir. And I'm very grateful for everybody to have spared some time to join us in this excellent webinar. I will dive straight into the problems which the shipping industry, being an expert from the shipping industry, I'll dive straight into the shipping part. A little bit of history, 1990s, we saw the shipping rates getting depressed due to a variety of reasons. Principal amongst them was the fragmented nature of the industry, intense competition between the players, rate cutting, excess supply of the ships in the market. And then suddenly, because of this, the cyclic nature, as we all say that the shipping has a cyclic nature. And in 2003 to 2007 was a period which was termed internationally as the credit super cycle of shipping. And in those days, we had that had a very positive impact on the shipping. It spurred international trade. And 2008 to 2020, the efforts of 2003 to 7 were further cemented. And we saw a lot of private equity investment, especially from United States, from China. These leasing firms, very aggressive European banks lending to provide a high supply tonnage. It rather resulted in an excellent time for the bankers to come in. And then we had the period from 20 onwards, where suddenly the freight rates actually shot up. Uh, Basically, the reason for the freight rates to shoot up in that period was everybody had just got out of COVID and they were in a restocking exercise. They were all restocking themselves, and hence we saw a massive increase in the freight rates, which has now, to a certain level, eased out, and or rather, we would say leveled out. What is important as of today's webinar is that India should always aim to increase its tonnage. The example of that we have is in China. China always believed that investment in maritime assets, they act like a natural hedge against up and down in the global market or international shipping. So they invested a lot of money in their shipyards, they invested a lot of money in purchase of ships and increasing their tonnage. So they were more or less unaffected by this increase or decrease in the freight rates. So we in shipping call increase of tonnage as a natural hedge against freight rates. So this kind of a natural hedging exercise we also should do with the government providing the necessary investment. India has enough people who have the expertise. They have the know-how. We need substantial support from the government, and that's why we have in existence now the IFSCA, which has a policy of supporting ship leasing and, of course, aircraft leasing. My previous speaker, Mr. Swar, has already spoken about, and he's already given you highlights of what is a wet lease and a dry lease. And uh, so I don't think I'm going to dwell too much on that. It is more or less same in shipping also. So what we say that a short duration lease could be a 3 to 6 months, or a longer duration lease from anything from 6 months to 3 years. Now, globally, what has resulted because of this leasing system coming into the existence is that a lot of ship operators have suddenly come into the market. Not now, it happened somewhere around the late 80s. They have come into the market and they are taking advantage of leasing agreement. The beauty of this leasing agreement is you don't have to buy the ship yourself. The ship is purchased by somebody else. You operate it. So you are not asset heavy, but you are performing on the basis of your knowledge and your know-how of the market. So the ship owners purchased, and the global operators, they moved in and they started operating, uh, not being asset heavy, but expertise on the in the shipping industry.
Sound not clear, not have some.
I'm sorry. Is there some? Oh, all right. So there's some disturbance. Fine, not a problem. So some of the recommendations which we would have for IFSCA to force this ahead is that a little bit of tweaking in our Merchant Shipping Act 1958, where DG Shipping should recognize or rather create a framework for ships or the ship owners who would like to register themselves under IFSCA and also register their ships under IFSCA. So maybe a little bit of tweaking of Merchant Shipping Act. Request or recommendation for Ministry of Finance, the Revenue Department, they should exempt something called as the withholding tax. They should restore the exemption on the tax dividends, which these companies who are registered in the IFSCA, the tax exemption for the dividends they pay out to the shareholders. Simplification of GST or leasing of Indian entities in the IFSCA. A request to the government of Gujarat to exempt payment of stamp duty for any agreements which are registered under IFSCA as related to shipping. Some implementation of some of these steps would go a long way. Well, not only encouraging shipping, ship leasing, but it will also encourage in bringing related activities into IFSCA. Related activities, I would say, ship broking, legal expertise, marine insurance, maritime finance, and presence of, I feel, presence of these intermediaries will give a holistic appearance to the efforts which IFSCA is making. And it will also increase the level playing field of the operators who would like to register themselves there, because everything, the legal help, the marine insurance, the available of finance, all will be available in the same location. So these are some steps which I feel the IFSC should encourage. Uh, by doing so, India would provide a level playing field and would obviously pose a tough competition to the hubs, the maritime hubs in the adjoining countries. But that is still a long way off. But at least we are glad that we have taken the first step. There are positive signs. How many people have registered there? What kind of a shipping activity is already going there would be, I think, touched upon by our speaker, Mr. Umesh. But offhand, I remember close to some 30, 35 foreign banks, close to 140 ship operators and ship leasing people have already registered. More are coming in. DG Shipping is trying to create, or rather already has a presence there. A major shipping companies of our country already has a presence there. IFSC is very strongly trying just to touch upon this, because of this regulatory limitations or restrictions in our country. A lot of Indian ship owners had drifted away to centers in Dubai or Singapore, and close to $1 billion worth of assets have gone out of our country and are present now in Dubai and Singapore. So they have gradually realized the importance of IFSCA, and they're trying to come back. The last point which I would like to highlight for IFSC is that India currently, as per the Ministry of Finance, the trade figures of India as of 22-23 is close to 890 $890 billion. And just to have a conservative figure of how much goes out in foreign currency towards freight, it's approximately 9 to 10%. So we are losing close to 89 to $90 billion every year because of hiring foreign ships to carry our very own cargoes. As a matter of statistics, somewhere around 1960, about 72% of Indian owned cargo was carried by Indian owned ships. And now it has come down to around 6.7%. We need to come back to that level. IFSCA is doing that. And if they could implement the recommendations which we are going to send across after the end of this webinar, I think we would be grateful and very happy to contribute towards that growth. Thank you very much for listening me out.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you very much. And that's amazing. I mean, in addition to saying your piece, you have also come out with some of the very interesting recommendations. So let's move to Abhay from Gujarat Maritime University. Please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for letting me in and give my inputs. So thank you so much, Pankaj sir. You have actually given very crucial information and some very interesting numbers that also you have floated through, which actually projects the need, the financial need, and the understanding of legal and financial expertise in the maritime area. So if we talk about the immense amount of investment which is coming in and being invested in maritime, so we have the Maritime 2030 vision, the Indian Maritime Vision of 2030, which projects that Indian government will be investing some 3 lakh crore of Indian currency in expanding the port and infrastructure and number of vessels also. So there was a report published as per the goal of Maritime Vision 2030 that India will be increasing its fleets by 1,000 vessels. Right now we have somewhere around approximately 1,500 ships. We want to add 1,000 ships more to the ancillary. So we are planning to have a huge amount of vessels. We are planning to have so Indian government has also amended the shipbuilding financial assistance policies and updated it, and by providing some 40 million US dollars investment into it, and also which in Indian currency will be some 7,337 crores. So the investment which is being levied by the government in the commercial aspect of the maritime sector is humongous. Also, the multiple changes in the legislature as Sir has pointed out, the Merchant Shipping. So the Merchant Shipping Act is the bill is underway. It is in amendment. The bill have been going into multiple scrutinies and analysis. So that might be coming in coming years. By the Parliament. We've already have the recent the Major Ports Act of 2021, and we recently the Inland Vessels Act also came into force of 2024, and Coastal Shipping Act definitely recently, which we have. So we have a lot of legal developments coming in, lot of government's interventions, government investment in the maritime, which creates a huge industry or huge opportunity, actually a plethora of opportunity in maritime education as well. In maritime, coming from the education background, coming from a maritime institution, which primarily focuses on the legal and commercial aspect. The matter of fact is that in India, majorly 90% of the institutions which we have, specifically working on maritime, are technical institutions offering courses like engineering and nautical sciences. So all those things are essential, are crucial. Nonetheless, if we see the job parity, we have only 60% of the jobs which are available in the technical areas. The rest of the 40% is actually commercial and technical aspect. As Pankaj has talked about ship leasing, you have to have an understanding of how a ship is leased in order to get indulged in the area of ship leasing. As a person who is working on board of a vessel, who's a captain even, may not have an understanding of the commercial aspect. So it is very vital that he gets a platform where he can actually develop a mindset and an idea that how he can build his capability or mindset to grow towards a commercial aspect and a legal aspect of maritime. So fortunately, we have people like Captain Pankaj who has, and obviously Jagmeet sir as well, who have actually gone through that process and have spent years of their life because of their interest in the subject, and they have developed that sharp area. But just because you're coming from a ship operational background doesn't mean that you'll have an understanding of commercial. You have to have an institution which gives you that kind of understanding as to how the commercials of the shipping works. And as we have discussing through this webinar also, the opportunities in maritime sector, leasing industry, ship leasing, primary focus in the IFSCA as well, is expanding. So as per the maritime vision, some 20 lakh jobs have been targeted by the government in port infrastructure development, in legal aspect and commercial aspect of shipping industry. So, and if we talk about the demand and supply, as I just emphasized on, we have the 60-40 ratio. We have 60% institutions catering to the, 90% institution catering to the 40% demand. And if I talk about the rest of the 40%, how many institutions are actually providing maritime, commercial, and legal education in the country? Unfortunately, there is only 0.8%. I mean, we are one, and sorry, it's only 8%, not 0.8. So sorry. So it's only 8% of the institution which are actually deliberating on the legal aspect, who are actually deliberating on the commercial and legal aspect of maritime sector. Rest majority of the institutions which we focus on, which we find the education institution, be it IMU, be it Tolani, or be it any other institutions, have a technical emphasis and are not able to provide or are not having the courses which can cater to the demand of manpower which is required to have an understanding of commercial shipping activities. So we have some 130 approved training institutions which are under DG shipping itself. But then those approved institution also caters to only the technical aspect. As per the Sagarmala initiative, the environmental generation for creating new jobs in port-led prosperity is, as I already told you, 20 lakh. It is, so the direct job that they want to make is somewhere around 4 million. And the indirect jobs that they'll be creating is somewhere around 10 million. So this is actually mentioned in the Sagarmala policy itself. You can look into that if you may. So furthermore, if we talk about the industry as, maritime industry or maritime education, how that is being developed. So we have to have a kind of a understanding of whenever a maritime logistic is being taught to somebody, it is very crucial that that person actually has the technical knowledge and understanding of how a ship operates and how does it work. Because whenever there is any change in the policies, be it environmental policies, it has an impact on the agreement for ship leasing as well, between the owner and the person who is hiring the ship. It renders a direct impact. If the value of fuel is increased, the nuances and the commercials of the vessel also, or the agreement also, or the leasing agreement also changes. So you have to actually have an understanding how a ship operates. So to deal with that, there is simulation trainings which are available to bridge the gap between the industry. Furthermore, industry, we do in the academia must undergo a collaborative research practice with the industry as well. So we can actually assist or work with law firms, and we are actually working with law firms and companies to have well restored understanding of how the ship leasing operates, and to have a detailed analysis on the limitations of the ship industry. So as Pankaj sir had talked about the issues in the Merchant Shipping Act. So the reason why we have less registration of the vessels, as he has suggested, some tax rebate should be granted under the IFSC, and the vessels should be allowed to be registered under the IFSC. So these kind of developments, these kind of push can be provided by industry and academia research collaborations. We have already have done a couple of conferences with the IFSCA on having an arbitration setup or a commercial arbitration catering to specific exemptions of certain awards or certain appeals in the IFSCA. We have pushed that also, that certain awards should be treated as international awards in the IFSCA, making it a broader and a more appropriate fora for arbitration as well. Anyways, furthermore, in the maritime education, there is a requirement of the smooth transition, as we have already mentioned that Pankaj sir and Jagmeet sir, they were able to convert and were able to go into the commercial and the legal side. And when they did it, there were no education platform which are available, which were providing this kind of a service. Nowadays, we have Gujarat Maritime University, and also we have what Jagmeet sir is having, the Skill Plus initiative, which offers and allows people, allow the seafarers to actually go and smoothly transition from the operational side to the commercial side and better understand the leasing. The companies who hire, they don't want to invest a lot of money on the seafarers who they have hired, because they're already paying them a lot of money. So they don't want to reteach them. They want them to learn and then come. They don't want to bear the training cost. And there, that is why where the educational institutions like GMU and like Skill Plus, which Jagmeet sir is having, is building and is catering to. So the creation, furthermore, as I've emphasized that, in the Indian academia also, we don't have many people or many experts who understand maritime commerce, or who understand the maritime legal nuances also. So a capacity building initiative, a capacity building trainings, internships, or industry visits are vital. We have that kind of practice at my university. We actually frequently visit multiple ports, and we see and we go on board of a vessel, and we actually try to live the lives which seafarers live on a daily basis. Obviously, what we experience cannot come close to what they have gone, but to just catch a glimpse of it, that's how we inculcate. Furthermore, in creating the curriculum, what is being taught or what has been trained to the manpower which is at place, it is vital that you have to have industry experts when you are building the course curriculum. So we have that practice to inspect, to get our course outline inspected by the experts like Captain Pankaj itself. So that is extremely vital to actually have a ready manpower which can cater to the demand which is available, readily available right now in the market, the demand of commercial and legal expert. This is something that I wanted to emphasize on. And furthermore, If we talk about opportunities, that what are available in the market for those who have done the commercial issues or have dealt with the legal issues, there are actually a lot of opportunities there. You have shipping lines, you have ship leasing and broking companies, you even have recruitment placement service licensing companies. So they are service providers, they are those who provide seafaring services, and there are many legal issues attached to that. You have NBOCCs, you have bunker providers, port providers, many NGOs which are working for shipping particularly, and you have the classification societies which look into the technical enforcement and the technical aspect of shipping, and to ensure that all the regulations, technical regulations, environmental regulations, safety regulations are being followed. Auditing of the vessel, surveying of the vessel. You have marine insurance, very vital for ship leasing. This is one area where the IFSCA, I believe, can have more emphasis attracting PNI clubs. India is in verge of developing its own PNI as well, but we need a big PNI to have an office in IFSCA. I believe that will give a very big major boost. Already a lot of banks have popped up in IFSCA, so that's a positive sign for ship financing industry. But ship financing is another area where a huge amount of manpower is required. Somebody who knows commercials of shipping is very rare gem to find. And you have obviously you have maritime lawyers which are very vital, and very much required, because maritime law is very different from the usual practice that you dwell upon, because of the technicalities surrounding the vessels and the technicalities surrounding the cargo shipments when they're at sea. So the technicalities are very different from road carriage and rail carriage and aviation. So you need specific experts who understand maritime. You have maritime security agencies now becoming more relevant because the political unrest all across, and you have regulatory bodies such as DG shipping, and you have the port state authorities which also provide multiple opportunities in maritime nuances. You can work with DG, you can do internships with DG, you have even SCI hiring now. So there are multiple government agencies, even NGOs, sorry, even the international organizations. The IMO keeps on hiring people, and you have the subcommittees of the IMO, MEPC, MSC, multiple requirements are there. So there's not just the companies and multiple different types of job opportunities. Even the governments and NGOs are also looking into.
Abhay, you have 1
So
minute
yeah,
maximum.
sir, I am done. This is all. I'll not, go beyond that time. That's all from my end. Thank
Really
you.
appreciate. Thank you so much. It's so very important to touch upon the skills and the human aspect. Nothing works without the people and the people who have got the expertise. So now we are going to have Umesh ji to put everything together. What our wonderful speakers have already spoken, and with his background as a CA and knowing IFSCA very well. So to you, and we would request you to give your presentation. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, friends. I mean, it's like a 2020 and it's a Saturday evening. Stalwart seniors in the profession would good to see you, number of people, and opening remarks were very good, covering all the important aspects of leasing, shipping, as well as the aviation. So my limited, I'll be limiting myself to the IFSCA. Just to touch upon one point, why IFSCA is conceptualized, or India spends close to $1 billion on financial intermediary services, which includes all leasing financials. So this was something which was important for the Indian economy, and if he wants to double from here, two areas are very critical. One is shipping and one is aviation, and both from a strategic perspective also. So having said that, the framework for the aircraft leasing and financing, ship acquisition and financing, asset management, and ancillary services. These are the basic four framework where the IFSC has come out with the guidelines. Why it is important? Two things, as I've already said about the economy, but there's a direct next slide. There's a direct tax benefit. A 10 years holiday out of 15 years, you can choose. Most of the leasing companies choose 2 years. After 2 years, they choose 10 years. No withholding tax. That's important. When the lease rental payment comes, no withholding tax, no MAT, and dividend is paid, and there is no no tax in hand of the shareholders. So, which is right now the payment which is made to a shareholders. Right now, there is no withholding tax. So it's an investor-friendly regime they have come out on a direct tax side. Next slide, please. On a next slide, after the direct tax, indirect tax. See, India is, we all know that India has got in fact, the country implemented very well the GST after the initial hiccups. But the advantage is that if you are leaving the services to DTA, then only the GST is covered. Any services outside India, GST under even RCM, it is not applicable. So that's a huge relief. People who are operating on international shipping or any other services, this can be a game changer, particularly on a shipping lines, because now they are allowed a ship broking also. So no GST, but DTA, yes, GST is applicable. In aviation, you have a 5%, but there are different rates also for the other ground handling equipment, so that you need to plan. But the GST is a neutral because the domestic user can set off against the liability. So frankly, it is not the tax impact per se. And there are state subsidies on the PF contribution, stamp duty. Next slide, please. Why GIFT? Why IFSCA? Unified regulator. Today, in fact, I was there under the alternate investment, and I had seen the response. People wants to come to India. People wants to set up the shop in a gift city. So it's a unified regulator, one window system. You don't have to go even to a SEZ or a different regulator, whether it's an RBI or a shipping regulator. It's a one regulator. Tax regime, I already mentioned about it. Cost advantage. The operating cost in a gift city is way below as compared to any other international center. I mean, needless to say about the currency, India. So India is the distinct advantage on the cost side. Ease of doing business. This is one of the regulator, which is I think the only regulator which talks to and gives you opinion informally. That's where they're coming out the new framework, where they have said on the platform that come with a query to us, we'll reply you informally. So you have always, the companies will have some issues or something which they want to take some position which may not be there in the framework. They'll be giving you guidance. So there is no gray area is left as far as the IFSCA is concerned. High quality dividend. I believe the shipping, you meet the people in shipping and you will find some Indian connections. Either he'll be Indian or he'll be connected to India. So I think it makes sense to get in. So now the aircraft leasing, the financial lease and the operating lease. India is a typical, earlier there was an issue on the lease payments, withholding tax primarily, GST, another. Now with this financial lease model and on operating, where the operating lease, the risk reward is with the lesser. In the financial lease, the entire risk reward is with the investor. So what is happening in India? People are preferring operating lease. There are close to 29 companies in the aviation sector who has come with a registration in the and which is a good in numbers. They have two primary distinct advantage. When you are investing millions on the leasing, a small reduction in the withholding tax is also a big saving. That's one. Second, effectiveness of the law. The people who are operating under the regime in the IFSCA, they are able to recover their dues regularly. And third, it's a huge market, which they don't want to miss it. So, I mean, you name most of the top leasing companies have come, besides Air India, Indigo. So, aircraft leasing is flourishing. Next slide, please. shipping is taking a little time, but as more and more user-friendly framework which is coming. Right now, there are close to 15 companies under the ship leasing activity, but there are big names like ArcelorMittal. I know, they have moved out. So I mean, their logistic, their shipping, they have moved out to the IFSCA. So there are big names which are coming. They have just set up the shop, and it will obviously there will be a some time will take because earlier there was a port confusion was there. But as I've said, the regulator is very proactive, talking to everyone on the board. Now, for example, there is a sunset clause of March 25 of commencement of a business, which we are expecting to get again one more validation year extension, which should be there till March 26. Other issues which regulator is following up for each voyage, you have to have a bill of lading and bill of entry under the 29B rules of SEZ. That also regulator is pushing, and we are hopeful that by end of this budget next month, this will go away. So virtually, there will be no bill of entry, bill of lading for because the ship is already registered under the shipping lease framework. So that's another ease of doing business which will happen. Now you can have all kind of arrangement on the bare border, whatever you want to have, as long as you are registered under the IFSCA, under the ship leasing. You can have all kind of like the short term. There are time charters or there are voyage, which is because of the commencement deadline. People are getting into it to get the extension. So this kind of permutation combination is possible. What is not possible? What is not possible is that if you bought the ship from India and you are substantially deploying that ship in India is not possible. There's a specific circular by the IFSCA. So you can have a majority of income from India, but you can't have a substantial, it's not defined, but when you say substantial is more than 75% as per our commercial understanding. But if you have a majority income from India, it's okay. But the advantage to the ship owner, even the secondary ship owner, there is no capital gains at the time of sale of ship, which is a lot. So you have a business income which is tax free, and when at the end of the tenure you are selling the ship, you don't have to pay a capital gains. I mean that's a lot according to me, which is not there in many of the other framework in other areas. Next. Now there are eligibility depends on what kind of a lease. Most, as I've said, most of the people are preferring operating lease primarily due to the lesser capital requirement. You just need a $200,000 for the operating lease. People are starting, most of them are starting with this. You can have a structure. So you can have a structure either of an LLP, limited liability partnership. You can have a limited liability company or a trust. These all three are allowed. Most of the people who are the leasing companies or the owners who have come there under the limited liability company, not under the LLP or not under the trust. Next, please. So here is how the structures are happening. Parent company sitting outside the IFSC jurisdiction. They are opening a company in IFSC jurisdiction, and they are leasing back because India is a substantial market. And from here, you can operate globally. You can go to Southeast Asia or a Far East, or you can go to any other jurisdiction. And there is no restriction of doing that. So it's a very user-friendly regime which has come. And I believe going forward, if someone is not there in this jurisdiction, then they are missing the business or missing the boat. Let me put it this, because I've been in this jurisdiction from last 2.5 years now, and I've seen the growth, and I've seen what Dubai was there 10 years back and what is Dubai now. So the same way in next 3 to 5 years, India will catch up. It's a matter of time. And what are the queries or the questions which the other speakers have raised? There at some point of time, it is getting addressed. It's just that India system takes time to address it, but eventually it will sail through it. So any other questions, if moderator or any other has to, please, I'll be happy to respond. I hope I have finished in time.
Perfect, Umesh ji. I mean, that's fantastic and very, very useful and quite substantive. So there is one question on the Q&A box by one Mr. Dipen. let me, or maybe you can read it yourself. Umeshji, I think maybe you are the best person to answer that. Others also can please help answer that. Is there someone from IFSCA here? We have been trying to register a ship leasing owning company since October, incurring heavy monthly rental expense in SEZ, but our CA, an experienced and reputed one, is unable to get the registration fast track. Does IFSCA recommend any consultant through which the process can be made swifter? I think this feedback is
I'm a
very
little surprised. Normally, it takes 60 days max, unless there is some custom issues, which I'm not sure about it. But otherwise, it doesn't take more than 60 days to complete the entire door-to-door process.
yeah. So would you
So
like to?
yeah, I mean, I can Dipenji, I can refer you a person from the website itself. I'll send it the connect, and then you can talk to them. They are good to. You can speak to them. Not an issue. And
Fantastic.
if you can't resolve it, we are always there. I mean, uh, we can always help you out on that.
Thank you, Meshi. I think Dipenji, I think that takes care at the moment, and then you can speak to Umeshji later. All right, just very quickly, I've been seeing Pankaj talking about the operating lease versus financial lease, and you have mentioned one question that comes to my mind is India, is IFRS, International Financial Reporting System, is that applicable in India or it is not?
Uh, India, you want me to answer?
Yes.
So India do have the leasing framework accounting standard. India follows Ind AS, which is equivalent to IFRS 16, if I don't if I recollect correctly. So India do have a Ind AS, which is similar to IFRS. So India do follow the lease accounting
Yeah.
of a financial lease and operating lease.
Right. Because in this part of the world, even if the time charter is more than 1 year, it shifts onto your balance sheet. The
Correct.
liability shifts
Correct.
onto your balance sheet.
So just to add on that, there are banks, because we have handled this IFRS part on the banking side. So they do convert Ind AS to IFRS, but both are accounting treatment by and large is same except for on a goodwill side.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So let me quickly ask, I don't see much questions over there from the audience. So I'll take this opportunity to ask few
We
questions.
hope we have, they have enjoyed the Saturday evening, late evening or early morning, I don't know, but
All right. Okay. This one is for, let me start with Swar. How does the IFSCA framework compare with other global aviation leasing hubs? We know that Ireland, Singapore, etc. are the leasing hubs. How does this IFSCA framework? I know Umeshji has discussed, but I would like you also to give more from the aircraft leasing perspective.
So when we talk about India, I think in terms of taxation, already Mr. Umesh has clarified regarding the tax exemptions, the GST exemptions when the aircrafts are being leased. So any goods or any services getting out of IFSC is considered as an export. So there's an exemptions for GST, and we have this 10 years of exemptions for taxes as well. That is one of the quick good to go for IFSCA. Apart from the when we consider the operations of various aircrafts, the one of the important part is the ground support. Now, ground support includes staff and employment. Now, we are one of the few nations in the world. We have a democratic system. We are one of the most stable economic system in the world. And when it comes to considering the maintenance of an aircraft fleet, it's a human-centric approach. So apart from taxation and everything, right now, I think we are one of the best options for aviation companies where they can have this framework in IFSCA and collaborating or combining that with the vision of Indian government. I think the tax exemption, the GST exemption, and of course the one of the best employment rates in our country. This is one of the best options that anyone can have globally right now.
Oh, I see. Fantastic. Okay. Pankaj, uh, now, despite being a maritime powerhouse that you mentioned India is, why haven't we emerged so far as the dominant ship leasing hub? What are the policy gaps? You mentioned some, but I would like to hear more from you.
Well, first of all, I think I'll pick up from where Umesh had left off. What he said was rather very encouraging. And in fact, what I spoke about, I felt that IFSC has done quite a bit more than what I had felt. But I still feel that there are still some regulatory complexities which are there, and IFSC should try to smoothen that out. We should be on the same level as the global tax structure. That is one. I don't know, Umesh would like to clarify whether ship leasing has been granted the status of financial instrument under IFSC. I think he will clarify that. If not, then we need that. More flexible leasing framework, somewhat on the lines of what we already have in the aircraft leasing out of Singapore or out of Ireland. So and fostering more international lessors and trying to attract them into India. So these are few things which I have, which I feel we should very seriously look upon. But Umesh can clear if they've granted ship leasing as one of the financial instruments out of IFSC.
I need to check, but to
Status.
the best of my knowledge, I don't think so.
Yes, so this is something if we can work out, which I am sure I had a meeting with the CEO few weeks back, and he said that he's working this out. And if that happens, we'll have a stronger presence of international players in IFSCA, which is already doing very well, but we'll have much better.
Right.
Lately, just to add, Captain, on that point, which, as I've said in the beginning, that India is waking up on the strategic side. So it's just a matter of time, they will iron out all the differences in a different jurisdiction laws, which India is governing right now on the shipping side.
Right.
Yes, I'm sorry, sir, to come in, but you're right, Umesh. And one thing which you pointed out is that they are very user friendly. They answer questions and solve queries quickly, and that is encouraging. Thank you.
Yeah. And Pankaj, you also mentioned about, you gave a very nice historical development from the global financial crisis and later on. So just one question that comes to my mind is, after the GFC, suddenly you find the Western banks liquidating their loan portfolios, selling it at a big haircut. And there was a space which was created, and the Chinese leasing companies had come in. And they gradually did not take over the entire space, but they took a major space over there. How did that work? Basically is that the Western banks, they stopped giving directly to non-relationship clients. Rather, they started giving back-end funding to the leasing companies, and they being the government-banked leasing companies. So the risk factor was much less. And these leasing companies then went out and dealt with the clients and took over that risk on their book as at a decent spread over what they were getting from the Western banks. How does this work as far as IFSCA leasing is concerned? Are we getting back-end funding from the Western banks at a cheaper price because the sovereign guarantee, etc., may come in? Umesh, I think.
Yeah, you want me to answer that? Yeah, that's fortunately or unfortunately, India on an infrastructure side, we have two large institutions. But on this kind of a infrastructure, which is a strategic one, we don't have one. Earlier we used to have. So now the Sagarmala, which you mentioned about, Dr. Singh mentioned about it. So the status has been converted as an NBFC. So we are expecting that by the kind of a guarantee will be given to the financial institution by the Sagarmala, and then there will be a shift financing, because in past the financial institution did not have a good experience in the overseas market. It is primarily Stancy and all of the banks are funding it, but again the problem remains the same. The rating of the shipping companies or the lessee or the lessor who wants to buy it, it has to be a joint effort. And I think as I've said that there is a already initiative on the Sagarmala converting into NBFC, supporting it is already started. So in another 3 to 6 months we will see this kind of support by the government on the similar lines, maybe a letter of comfort or the ultimately recourse with the government in case of the any failure takes place, which should come out in next 1 or 2 quarters.
Right. Just a follow-up question to that, Umesh. I mean,
Mm.
uh, so at the moment, IFSCA is only looking at smaller size of the tickets and not, is that the reason why container leasing is not taking place?
Just because in a container leasing, again, the same issues which Indians shippers had faced in the past, post-COVID, and recently also during the Red Sea crisis. The containers is a floating stock, so it is right now again in India the same problem. The banks are not funding it, and which I feel that I mean I did discuss with the leasing container leasing association. IFSCA is open to it, but one needs the push, and the push only can come from the association. So anyone is there on the container leasing side, if you guys are pushing. In fact, we had a couple of meetings with the business development side on the IFSCA side. They are willing, they are open, but there's a one push is required from the container leasing association or a container operator association.
Right. So you're looking at difference between the container leasing and the container ship leasing. So there is no
Yes.
issue with regards to container ship leasing. Only
No.
the container leasing is leasing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. I had this small doubt in my mind. Thank you so much. Pankaj or Swar, would you like to add anything to what has been said so far?
I think Umesh ji has covered more than.
I don't want to do a betting for all of you.
No, but yes, the Umesh ji has covered all of the important aspects. Only the addition to what he has said, we have been also commenting on how for this framework should work. So we have specifically commented on the frameworks that IFSC has developed for how to handle the complaints or the redressals of the various IFSC units. So we have been working with that particular arena as in how the challenges that are facing right now should be solved when it comes to IFSC. So that's something which I would like to add on.
Okay. All right. Pawan, Pankaj, anything from you? Otherwise, I'll go to Abhay.
No, nothing, sir. Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. All right. So till I ask you the next one, let's get some more insight into the skills and training from Abhay. So how can maritime legal pedagogy be adapted to address, there's so much changes are happening today. You got the regulatory changes, you got environmental sustainability, then emerging technologies. So how are we going to do that, Abhay? And what is GMU doing in terms of knowledge requirements so that these challenges are met?
So, as you know that when you're at sea and when there are issues pertaining to cargo, there can be container issues or container damage and goods which are being carried inside of containers. There are wet cargoes. You have law changes depending on what kind of cargo there is. That's primarily what I'm trying to say. You have gas and oil, different risk. You have different charter party obligations associated with them, and you have even different types of charter party agreements. So you cannot just with a basic legal understanding go into the market and then apply the same concept of common law principles and go into the court and try to emphasize and try to argue on those lines, because there are many terms in maritime law, particularly in shipping law, which are different, which changes even at times when you talk about obligations under bill of lading, the privity of contract, that clause goes haywire. The privity, because when you're transferring the bill of lading to a third party, which is not an original party to the contract, he gets more power than the original parties. It becomes a conclusive proof to the third party. So even the idea of privity of contract, which is very basic element of contract, doesn't apply in shipping. So you have to actually have a know-how of how the shipping works, and the specific changes in the WISB conventions and the other conventions which have been incorporated in the Indian law. And the and you also have to have an understanding on where to go when the matter is filed, because again there are parallelly, because in India there is no uniformity of maritime law, so maritime claims can be filed under multiple acts. You can go under admiralty law, you can go under the civil law, you have the commercial dispute act, you can even go under the commercial protection act. You have many cases before the consumer protection act for cargo claims issues, Hague Visby being taken up there. So you have to have the understanding where to go when a maritime matters come to you. So primarily, it's a unique area. You need law. It's fortunately for aviation, we have appropriate laws. We have Montreal conventions being followed very efficiently in India, which is not a very old law. But the Hague Visby, sir, is an Montreal Convention is still 1999. Hague Visby is a 1921 instrument implemented in 1924 that is being still pushed in our country, and not just in our country, internationally. So it's an outdated law which is being implemented with different interpretations and different nudges in different areas. So the concept of basic concept or the background of shipping you have to have, and then the technicalities, and then the issues, and then the vague implementation in our country, all has to be catered into, and then you can actually have an understanding of legal. And in terms of legal pedagogy, so there is less number of literature, you're well aware of that, in terms of particularly Indian cargo claims, or even the environmental compliances from ships. So that has to be created, that has to be studied, that has to be brought forth by understanding and going through the independent judgments of the courts. And also, since Indian judgments are limited, you have to look into the foreign judgment. You have to relieve from the foreign judgment, and then accordingly, you have to inculcate that. So it's very vital that we need educational institutions focusing on maritime law per se shipping law, so that we can get competent maritime lawyers in the market. So in GMU, sir, primarily what we are doing is we are trying to create this kind of database which you can actually find in a single platform, where you can find maritime admiralty cases or compliance cases, arrest cases in a single go. We are also tying up with some law firms to actually provide some sort of legal service. We have reached out to a couple of firms so that we can actually have a commercial dispute issues resolved here at the university, and we can actually we are partnering with certain training associations as well, where we can actually reach to a larger audience to provide maritime law training and maritime law, at least basic understanding, because many times people don't have a 1 year time or a 2 year time to actually come here and do it. So we tend to provide certain 3 years, 2 years, 2 month, 3 month short-term courses. Although it's very difficult, you also know, sir, very difficult in such a brief amount of time to have that plethora of knowledge given to them. But that's what we are trying to do. At least we are trying to have some sort of output or some sort of outreach through these trainings and through these initiatives, sir. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Pankaj is smiling. I know why he's smiling. If we don't have Hague Visby rules, what are we going to use? Hamburg rules, Rotterdam rules, they are disaster. They are absolutely disaster. Rotterdam rules exposes you to, and your P&I club will
Horrible.
not cover you.
Horrible, sir. I completely agree.
So
I
I
completely
think
agree.
Hague Visby rules is the best that we have. And
Yes, I
Pankaj,
agree.
what would you like to say? Hamburg rules, no.
No,
The
absolutely not.
the
Completely.
burden of
I agree.
the owner of
So,
that.
well, the mere fact that Hamburg rules have not been adopted by some of the major maritime nation itself is a proof how unpopular they are.
Yeah.
Hague
So,
Visby,
yes, so what I've actually seen primarily in Europe also and in India, and many times we tend to have a combination, a kind of a mixture of, in terms of interpretation, in terms of judgments, where certain elements of Hamburg is being incorporated. Not all, definitely not all, but certain elements have been taken up.
Yeah, the burden of proof totally shifts onto the owner. I mean, that's a big problem. And Rotterdam rules, it's a total
It's a
disaster.
disaster. It's a
They're
disaster.
increasing the
I'll take
limitation
it.
of liability.
Yeah.
You are taking out navigation from the exemption, and it's a
Multimodal, sir. It's a multimodal law.
No, under charter party, deviation is not accepted. So we are deviating from today's
yes
webinar. It's
today. Yes,
leveraging IFSCA, not discussing maritime law.
absolutely. So now let's come back. So there is no further question from my side, and I think the audience also has not said, unless you would like to each of you take about 2 minutes and give me your closing statement. And let me
Sorry to interrupt, sir. We have a question in our Q&A.
okay, where is it?
Shall I in Q&A by Mr. Sujit?
How come I am not able to see it? Yeah, please read that out.
So the question is there any age criteria for leasing of ships and aircraft from global sources?
That's a good question. Yes.
Sir, you should see the gentleman who has asked that question. It's very scary, very dangerous to answer any question to himself. He is a wealth of knowledge himself. I think he should be answering that question himself.
So give him the access to the mic, and let's hear from Sujit ji himself. What does he
Yes,
think about it?
he's a person who's internationally, not only in India, but internationally respected for his knowledge.
Yes, sir, in a minute.
I think when it comes to timeline, I believe there are stringent timelines for the maintenance of the aircrafts. So when the DGCA talks about the stricter regulations of aircrafts, of course the time is a byproduct, but then when you adhere to such guidelines, I think it is covered in the maintenance guidelines itself.
The mic and camera is enabled for Mr. Sujit.
That is Captain Sujit Samadar. He's a stalwart of our industry. Sir, we would be honored if you could speak a few words.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Captain Kapoor, for your kind words. I don't think I'm in that league at all, but anyway, thanks a lot. The reason very interesting and fascinating discussion on financing ships and leasing that is going on for some years. My question was basically around the question of, as you said, the ship business, shipping sector is a cyclic business. So there is a perpetual stream of sale and resale and rebuying of ships, which continues uh, across the world as different ports have different criteria for enabling certain ships to ply in their waters. In India, we also have some rules that have been specified by DD Shipping some months ago. So I was wondering whether in our thinking, are we going to bring in a certain age criteria of whatever 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, that you cannot bring those sort of platforms to India? That was my question.
My answer, sir, to that is DG shipping rules are very much applicable to ships, even out of which are registered out of IFSCA. So I think they will be applicable here. If DG shipping says for a certain kind of a vessel it should be 20 years, then that will be 20 years. And that is applicable here also.
Thank you. Any views on the aircraft side? Indigo is a great example of how they designed their leasing agreements. If you have some views on lease of older aircraft. Thank you.
So, Mr. Sujit, as I mentioned, I mean, so as per my knowledge, there are few of the airlines that already have an offices in IFSCA, for example, Indigo. So when it comes to the age of aircrafts, I believe, as per my knowledge, there are no specific international time limits that are defined. But when it comes to the maintenance of the aircrafts, I believe it's very much stringent because we have seen so many aircraft crashes, and that the mistakes, and from that mistakes we have learned so far. There are day by day the rules for the maintenance of the aircrafts have been evolved, And of course, the DGC is one of the prominent body when it comes to India. So it of course has an guidelines for checking the air quality or the maintenance logs and each and everything. So when you have this stringent timelines in terms of defining the maintenance of a particular aircraft, I believe practically it is not possible to have an infinite time limit for a aircraft. That's what I can say right now, as per my knowledge.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Samadar. Thank you very much. So from my side, nothing more to ask. And I am really so delighted and happy that I had the chance to be with you and learn a lot. I learned a lot. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Saloni, we can't hear
Saloni,
you.
madam, you're muted.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. So, as we conclude our today's webinar, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to all our distinguished speakers for sharing their experience and perspectives. Your contribution has been illuminated in the complexities of leveraging IFSCA's framework and providing a clear roadmap for navigating the complexities of international leasing operations. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our esteemed moderator, Mr. Jagmeet, who has guided us through this enriching session. What truly stood out was not just his ability to moderate the discussions, but his passion for the subject and the way he brought out the best in each speakers. Thank you, Mr. Jagmeet sir, for making this session a true success. Thank you very much. We would also extend our heartfelt gratitude to Gujarat Maritime University for their invaluable support to this webinar. A very special thank you to all our attendees for your engagement and thoughtful participation. We hope today's discussion has been enlightening and that you leave with an actionable insights. We would also like to inform everyone to mark their calendars for our next webinar, which is scheduled to be on 15th of February, titled as Unlocking Global Opportunities, FDI in Aviation and Maritime, the Legal Insights, Challenges and Future Trends. To stay connected with us, we have our WhatsApp group. The link has been provided in Q&A, and you can be updated and have been connected with all the future webinars by WithLaw, hosted by WithLaw. Even I would like to inform that there's a recording of today's session, which will also be uploaded on YouTube channel of our firm, WithLaw. The link is also available in Q&A, and the same will be circulated in our WhatsApp group. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you
There
for
is
joining.
one question, Saloni. Someone
Yes,
has
sir.
raised in the group. If you don't mind, I can just answer it quickly.
Sure, sir.
Someone said that these other regulators are regulated also besides IFSCA. Now I just answered that it depends how you're coming through, how you're structuring it, and what kind of regulated business you want to come through it. So there are no dual regulations. There are only one regulation in the IFSCA, which is the IFSCA itself, and then depends upon the what kind of investment on which area we want to come into it. Like family office, RBI is not allowing.
Right.
Thank you, everyone, on behalf of WithLaw and Quadrant Legal. And thank you, all the speakers. It was really an enlightening session.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jagmeet, sir, and
Thank you,
Saloni,
sir.
madam.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.